Hello and welcome to They Say It Takes a Village. My name is Raya. I've got 2 little boys, a full-time job, and now I'm adding amateur podcaster to the mix. So it's safe to say that it really does take a village, at least for me to raise my kids. This podcast is aimed to give moms a fun, unfiltered, and an informative outlet to navigate all things motherhood. Join me each week as I interview one of our local heroes from my village who make mom life just that bit easier. Think of me as your personal mom group, bringing you recommendations when you need it the most. Having said all that, let's get into today's show. They say to the world, you are a mother. To our family, you are the world. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of They Say It Takes a Village. In honor of Arab Mother's Day, today's episode is slightly different, but extremely near and dear to my heart. We thought that both me and my sister would co-host this podcast and interview my mom. I thought this was so fitting because, of course, it is Mother's Day, and we're going to be chatting about motherhood through the years, building resilience, and ultimately raising good kids. Some of you may not know that both my sister and I were both born in Iraq, in Baghdad, and we had left when we were very little and sort of moved around until we settled in the UAE. So my mom's obviously lived to tell the tale, and she has a very fascinating story as to how she did it with 2 kids in tow. So without further ado, Mrs. Ban Altoumah. Thank you and welcome to They Say It Takes a Village.
Thank you so much for having me. It's
Layan,
always a pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for including me.
This
I'm
is
really
cool.
excited.
We should start doing this like...
It's a lot of pressure. I think one time we'll do, but I'm excited to be here.
I love it already.
Mom, do you want to tell the people who are listening a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how long have you been in the UAE?
Okay. Before I introduce myself, I want to say to all the beautiful mothers out there, happy Mother's Day to the mothers, to the aunties, to the sisters, to the grandmothers, and hope you have a wonderful day. And in Arabic, عيد سعيد لكل وخالة وعمة وأخت وجدة. إن شاء الله يعود عليكم بالخير والبركة وإنتوا الخير والبركة. That's for my introduction. Now, I am a senior lecturer at the Higher Colleges of Technology, and I teach at the program, Medical Laboratory Science program. And I've been in the UAE about almost 30 years.
Yeah, we've been here a long time.
Yeah, and it's lovely. It's been the best time.
I mean, obviously, you've got a very, very interesting life, I find. I always tell you should write a book. And you should put it all down. But to take you right to the very start, just a background on your childhood, and what was it like growing up in Iraq at the time?
I was born in a prominent, progressive, open-minded family who's all about education and women empowerment, really, judging from the fact that you're both grandmothers, one born in the 20s, in the 1920s, and one is a lawyer, one is a principal, and your grandparents are one a lawyer, one a doctor. And no chance that we will ever not have a very good education. And so with this kind of background, I was sent when I was 17 alone to the UK to study, to get a good education. That's part of the women empowerment. But for me, that was the first challenge in my life. And that was the first brick in the resilience that I had drew from for, later on in life. So that was the early beginning.
Early childhood.
And
then leading up to sort of university and
yeah. So I was at university. I did my bachelor's in Glasgow University, and then I did a higher degree master's in Australia, in Sydney, Australia. And throughout this time, that was a struggle and was a a bit of a challenge. But that wasn't the challenge. The challenge came later on in the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
When I came back from my studies and I met your dad and got married and had you. And that was all within the first Gulf War.
I was going to ask, was that sort of, what was your journey into motherhood like?
Yeah. See, it was, in fact, again, this wasn't a big deal, motherhood. It was, the big deal is to cope with all what's happening outside and try and protect your children throughout this time. And with the First World War, First Gulf War.
We're not that old.
No, felt like a world war for us, I'm sure.
It was a challenge when it was ending. You see, towards the end, as you know, propaganda of all wars tend to exaggerate. So it was talk of missiles and chemical attack, nuclear. That I was pregnant with Layan at the time, and it was horrendous. I thought I had visions of me having my baby in the wilderness while the place was up in flames.
Oh my God.
It was quite horrific at that time. So I wasn't even thinking about the baby or having the baby. It was just survival and safety, really. And the worst one was the second Gulf War. And that's when it got really bad, because there was no communication, no television, no radio, no electricity, nothing, no security and safety at the same time. And that's when, at that point, I had the two of you.
We were both, yeah.
You were both born. And at that point, I thought that was the end of it. That was the end of, I won't be able to stay any longer and have my kids be raised in such a unsafe place.
It's so honest. It's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't even say interesting. I think it's so crucial to point out the fact that the first 5 years into motherhood, it was so much stress that's not to do with motherhood. I mean, now seemingly both me and Layan have kids, and we will never know. And alhamdulillah, we would never know what that stress is like.
But it was still stressful.
It's still stressful as a mother. Could you imagine adding that element in?
Yeah. It was. You see, I think generally in the human ability is to have all that reserve. And in science they call it great functional reserve. It's like the liver will do its function when 80% of it is damaged, and it's drawing from the 20%. And
says the typical scientist. We always have to go back to that, don't we?
And so that's you actually have so much strength within you that you draw from to shield your kids. That was the real challenge for me, shielding my kids from the war and the effect of the war and the trauma of the war and whatever. I wouldn't even get you to hear anybody talking about the war. For me, I was trying to make it look like a journey. And I don't know if you remember, we had to flee from Baghdad to go to a farmhouse out in the nowhere. And I did it like a trip, as a picnic. And the wild dogs, they were our pets, and we would take turns riding the tractor, if you remember, and we would have fun riding the tractor around the farm.
I remember the tractor.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, this is so cool, and it's so high up.
Yeah.
It's so funny, the different perspectives as a child.
Yeah.
I would have never thought. I never felt that was a stressful situation.
Yeah.
I don't remember it at all, which I think is even more of a testament to the fact that I don't feel like
you were only 2. And you were 5. So at that point, as I said to you, I was putting all the energy in trying to get out of that situation, and we were very lucky. And there were so many families who couldn't and had to put up with it and try and have a normal life for their kids amongst
Very abnormal circumstances.
total
Yeah.
chaos,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
So obviously uprooting your life, going from a place that you were, I mean, fairly quite comfortable with, and you've got your family and your extended family and friends and people that you grew up with and everything, and uprooting your life with 2 kids. I mean, I can only speak, for myself. It's very, very stressful just as a person alone. And then you throw in your own family, you, daddy, us two. How did you manage? I mean, I keep saying that I'd never felt the instability. How did you maintain a stable life with so much going on that is unstable?
And you voluntarily took on so much as well. You decided to throw in some degrees.
Yeah. I mean,
How?
Yeah.
In fact, I tell you, the truth is the whole aim was to make sure that you're going to be okay. So it was the idea of your future. It was the aim. And along with it, you see, at home, you have your aunties, your cousins, everybody was calming everybody else. And everybody was saying, we got it, it's all right, we'll survive, we'll manage. But later on, you see, you have to make sure that your kids are okay. So that's why more came on, more in the mix, as you say. Yeah.
And so you just decided to go from there all the way to Sydney, Australia.
Yeah, that was
It's really far.
Yeah. It was an opportunity, which as I said to you, it was a good opportunity for us to migrate. And a lot of people didn't have that. So we jumped at the possibility. We applied and we got granted the status. And so there,
what was that like?
That was the 4th challenge. That is taking these kids from their home, their culture,
Which is very much in the Middle East, and transporting it thousands of miles away.
and then going to another country, a different language, different set of rules, and different set of traditions, and still while trying to make it look all easy and no problem, and everything is fun and happy and normal. That's my main thing. I keep saying normal because that was the aim, to be normal and not to be affected or adversely affected by whatever had passed.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
What would you say would be your biggest challenge as a mom to date?
As a mom, I tell you, with motherhood, the challenges, as I have mentioned to you, there were about 4. And those challenges were big. But with motherhood, everybody asks about which stage of childhood or which stage of your kids, which stage is difficult. But for me, not a stage. It's when you raise your kids. You're in control of your kids when they're young, and then you raise them to be independent. And then when they want to be independent and make choices, whether it is their IGCSE choices or the topic they want to study at university or their friends or their outings, or their partners, and you cannot really tell them no. You cannot do that because they are independent and you've raised them to be independent. So I find it hard because from your own experience. Oops, I touched this. From your own experience, that road that you've chosen is wrong one. There is a better road, easier, and a more easier road for my children. So I had to come up with a way of chatting. So we used to chat, as you remember. Your entire childhood was chatting in the car on the way to different activities, So it's chatting in a way. I bring you stories and I bring you somebody else's experience or somebody else's struggle choosing that particular route, and then so that you eventually decide.
Yeah, that's
You
the right
take
course.
that decision.
I copy
you know?
that tactic
Yeah.
all the time, and I copy it with a 5-year-old. I can only imagine how much I'm going to copy it when they're like 18.
Yeah.
I'll say, well, not quite no, but
Yeah.
kind of no.
Yeah.
You know,
Because you just because you're older, you do know that
Yeah.
there are certain.
Through experiences, you know, you've gone through, you've seen it a bit more. I mean, it's just with age, you know,
Yeah.
you know more.
Yeah.
So is that how you overcame these challenges?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was a good tactic, and as well, I mean, it's a two-way. If that route that you have decided to take, I wasn't happy with it, but once I talked to you and your sister Layan, you'd show me that no, you are wrong. It is right, and that changes my mind as well. So I learned from my kids, and my kids, you know, it's two-way street really, and
the chat.
the chat is very important.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, we chat all the time. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What was the best bit throughout that time? What was the best age, the best phase, the best problem to have?
Yeah, the best really is when you do end up choosing the whatever you've decided and you do it, and your success is really my best thing.
As in me and Layan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Your successes and your achievements, and I mean, I'm sure everybody likes to, you know, your own. I mean, my own success and achievement. That's good, but when I see you happy and you've reached that stage where you're happy with your decision and you've achieved the goal that you've set out to get, that was wonderful. And the best part was your graduation days.
yeah, I remember that.
Those were good days.
Those were great days.
Yeah,
and then the weddings.
what about those 4 grandkids that you've
the
got?
4 grandkids. Oh, and the list is long. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Len, what would you say is your best point through motherhood?
Oh, that's so hard.
It is, isn't it? Can you? I don't know. I don't even know if I can pick one.
No, well, I think with young kids, it's when they're genuinely being nice and loving. But this is obviously a mother of a terrible 2-child.
Mhm.
So when they're genuinely showing them their nice, sweet, loving side, whether it's reading a book or belly laughs with their grandparents, or it's that, those are the bits that I like.
Yeah.
You know, I could do without a lot of the other bits.
Yeah.
But when you get that genuine smile and genuine love, and I see it, it's not even just with me, selfishly, of course, I love it when they want to cuddle me.
Yeah.
But when I see Isla playing with you and I can see the bond and how she's wholeheartedly enjoying herself and is surrounded by love. Because I think the sort of root to her story is that it's kind of true. I didn't feel a thing.
No, neither did I.
And I think it's because we were so loved, you know, with so much force. And I think that's really nice. And when I see that happen to my kids, that's my happiest bit.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of no matter the circumstances. And there's so many moments that for me, am I doing it right? Is this right? Is this the correct way to go about it? But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if you did it right or wrong, but you're there. You're 100% there. You've got love to give, and they're happy to receive it. No matter which way that is, you know.
Yeah, I think that is the reality of parenting is to be there and to love.
But
love is the most difficult.
Actually, answer the questions. You know, I had my kids before you did, obviously, and so I'm the Google Pro. I asked about 1 million trillion questions a day. To you, to anyone who would listen.
No, but
mostly to Google,
we've got
right?
an encyclopedia in our pocket.
So who answered your questions?
How did you do it? I feel like you know those pre-internet, the dark days.
ages.
Yeah. How did you do it? I mean, how would you know, for example, this is the right
nap routine? Or
Did you have a nap routine?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, we are the generation of books. And yeah, really. And books and radio and programs. I used to tune into BBC to listen to whatever. When I was little, it was Top of the Pops, and and my brother would be all the football. I don't know, the league or whatever, the football league that they have. But anyway, as I grew older, it was the radio, or you know, the and it was every week we would go for shopping for food and everything, and we always pass by the bookstore.
Yeah.
And we'd get the latest book, magazines, periodicals, or whatever. And also, when things weren't really that great, when there was a bit of a restriction upon publications at some point, we would, ask people to sneak in if they're traveling and
get us this book.
Get us,
There was
so
no Amazon.
I asked to get when I was having you to get books about child,
Rearing.
Yeah.
Parenting
And
books,
I
yeah.
had so parenting books. So I had the Dr. Spock and Penelope Leach, and I remember following, and there was the nap routine there, and all of the feeding time and everything. But of course, we would struggle. We would ask our parents, our grandmas,
Your village.
the village.
Yeah.
We used to have the village.
So it's now the
internet. Is
the
your
internet.
village.
Yeah, the internet. This
But it
podcast
can
is the
feed
village.
you, but it can feed you all sorts of wrong.
I know, that's the
information.
danger
That's
of
the
the internet.
problem.
It's wonderful and amazing,
Yeah.
and also extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
We talk about this. I bet honestly on every single podcast,
Yeah.
we talk about the pros and the massive cons to do with the internet and Google and all sorts of things, especially to do with parenting.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
One of the big topics these days, and I think it keeps coming up, I even did an episode about it, resilience. How, I mean, in your scope, how were you able to instill resilience in this massively life-changing period? Because now we try to do it and our lives are fairly stable. And even then, I mean, I would question, am I allowing them to do this properly, or am I giving them the opportunity to be resilient? Did you find that your situation in life built the resilience, or did you feel like you had to overcompensate?
I think, you see, resilience for me, it came as a result of all the circumstances that I was into. And that same circumstances had affected you and built your resilience in a way that, for me, as I told you, my 4 challenges, and for you, it was changing countries.
Yeah.
The amount of countries that you moved around. And that is the most surprising thing to me, because I kept thinking, my God, that those poor children having to go from one country to the other. We had to stop over in Amman, Jordan for a while. And so there's a school in Baghdad, school in Amman, school in Sydney, 3 schools in Sydney by the time we settled into an area that we wanted. So, and the brilliant thing was,
and then we moved here,
that you made friends so easily. And for me, looking at that, I thought, wow, my children are resilient.
Yeah.
They are somehow, with the circumstances, and I thought that will adversely affect you. But it turned out to be that it was an advantage. And you were so multicultural that you can, speak to any culture, any topic. And that, to me, was a testament for your resilience.
Did you have to try a little bit harder?
Of course. I mean,
I feel like she tried harder her whole life, though.
Yeah.
But let's not forget that she was working full time throughout this entire period. Like,
this is
you've always tried your hardest.
Yeah.
And I think we felt that all along.
And you see, again, to be the model. And look at you. You are both of you full-time jobs with 2 kids, and
we do try hard.
To try hard. The ability to try hard, move jobs, do whatever you want to achieve, and you go after it. And that's, again, a testament to your resilience. And you try hard because you're at every point. That's what I want, maybe probably later on, to say to all mothers: don't worry about it. Do not worry about it. It will come. You see, throughout the time, you always think, oh, this, I've caused this to my children. This will happen, and something bad. That's because of my decisions to do things or move countries. But it turns out that it's actually better. It's always good.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad at all. Yeah. So just, to all mothers, really, do not worry. Do not think of the future. It's good to plan for it and do the right steps towards it, but not to the extent that makes you anxious, because you don't own it. Nobody knows what the future holds, really. And what you have is the moment.
Yeah.
And as Eckhart Tolle says, and the author of The Power of Now, it is now. You should have fun with your kids. You should have fun in your youth and your career, in your family life, in your in that environment you're in. It's wonderful. Enjoy it, and do plan for the future. But do not let the whole day goes just because you're thinking of tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's really my message to all young mothers.
It's true. We always talk about it. We always talk about the fact that we should be focusing on being present, on being mindful, that enjoy this moment, or feel, even if the moment isn't so good, it's just for this moment. So just feel it.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier said than done.
Sure.
And I'm sure it comes with age. And I think retrospectively, the things that I used to care about, let's say 10, 15 years ago, is nothing in comparison to what I'm thinking about now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also with young children, you can't help but think about the future, because it's their future.
Yes.
And their future is in your hands. And I think any parent is always going to be concerned. But I get what you're saying. Just enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is at that point. Enjoy it, or be annoyed, but it's just be there. Feel it for that moment.
So finite, whatever it is, the good or the bad.
Yeah. It will end if it's bad. But always, if you start the day with a positive thought, and the whole day changes. And that's another thing. Your day is wonderful. It's a gift from Allah. So enjoy that day, because again, we don't own our time. So we'll be grateful for it.
I have to ask, when we were little and you had a job and you studied, and we were in Australia and we had moved countries, and you went through a very just on a complete tangent, did you have at some level any PTSD going from a war-torn country?
I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I'm
sure we
how
did.
Did you go to therapy? Did you do something? I mean, it must have been petrifying.
Again, I'm sure. You see, again, you're drawing onto that extra battery, the extra battery, the extra charge that you have. You're exhausted. You are psychologically damaged, I'm sure, because we would sit for hours to talk about it. We actually get comfort talking about the horrendous time that we had, and we calm down. I mean, that is PTSD, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you draw from the extra charge that you have to keep your life going. So that's the coping mechanism is amazing. Again, you have an amazing adaptability.
Going back to the resilience.
To the resilience, and you adapt to new situations, and you draw from that extra charge. Although you go home and you're
just a shell of a human.
A shell of a human, exhausted. And as I said too, we'd sit and reminisce of the horrendous time fondly. Isn't that psychologically incorrect?
But to a certain extent, not really, because I'm assuming you mean you and Daddy.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, I know I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just trying to put myself in that situation. You've got almost like your team, your teammate that has gone through the absolute most horrendous part of life, but you're doing it together, so you probably feel way stronger. It's almost like we came out of that. We can kind of tackle anything at this point.
Absolutely. And that is the actual
and talking about it maybe strengthened you in a way. I don't know. I think that's what I would feel. It's like, for example, when we're the COVID era. me and Nasser, my husband, we talk about it sometimes. Like, do you remember when we were in lockdown? Do you remember when we had 15 minutes to get our groceries?
Yeah, it's true.
Funny that, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like you were in it together.
Or like how you have a bad day and you get to the end of it and you chat through it to somebody and you can sort of laugh it off.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And it's always kind
Problem
of good to,
halved.
in hindsight.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
I get it. It's
Yeah.
almost therapeutic.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And nobody will understand if you tell a psychologist how would this. Nobody will understand what you've gone through, and I did.
No, I'm sure they would have, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And maybe there just wasn't the sort of done thing. I mean, if this had happened now,
Yeah,
I think you'd probably get some counseling. Sure.
yeah.
But I think also, I mean, I get it. She must, in the midst of, I think her go-to was survival.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I think you're too busy as well.
Yeah.
I'm just
Where
thinking,
can you
where would
fit that in?
Yeah.
I think that leads to my other question. With all that, did you manage to ever do anything remotely close to self-care?
Self-care, schmelf-care. What is that?
No,
What is
anything.
that?
I mean,
No.
what did you do? Did you just,
Yeah.
I don't know, go and I don't know.
You always
what was,
had great hair.
yeah, was it a good blow dry?
Yeah, was it a good blow dry? I
mean,
do not
did you
have a memory
switch
of you with the
off?
hair out of place.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's switching off. It wasn't number one, really.
Yeah.
I think switching off as a family, that was the best part, was going on holidays.
Yeah.
With the
We did a lot
four
of
of us.
Yeah, we
And
did.
we did lots of road trips, if you remember.
I
I
do.
mean, we
Yeah.
did the entire east coast of Australia,
Yeah.
all from New South Wales to Brisbane, all by car. And we had so much fun. And that was the time when I had a bit of self-care,
That's
if you
really
like.
lovely.
Yeah. And holidays with family.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I have a minute, I might read a book or something just to sort of take my mind off things.
Yeah.
But I think family holidays was really
go-to.
the go-to.
I look back with such fond memories. Like the
Me
whole time we were
too.
talking about family
Yeah.
holidays, I was smiling.
Yeah,
I do look back at it with such good memories. It was such fun.
And the good hair helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the hair thing, just to have that thing for you.
Yeah, that's one thing I do like to get the latest cut. And
Well, it looks great now. You mentioned you sort of touched on the topic about the different phases of children and raising children. Do you have one particular, the most challenging phase between, raising me and Layan?
Yeah, as I said to you, it's always not in any particular. I mean, I suppose teenage would be the one that the child feels that they're independent enough to make their own decision, and you have to respect them. But that's teenage. But then at any age, you get the exact same situation, but there's more of it during teenage. And that's where which is good at some point, but it's not good at some point, that I have to justify. If I want something done in a different way, I have to tell you why. So I've raised you to ask why.
Yeah.
If I want you not to go to so-and-so's house, why?
Yeah.
And then I will have to give you a very valid and good argument.
I feel like we take that on board with our husbands.
I do that with the
I
kids
do that.
now. Yeah.
Nasser has to tell me exactly why we're not doing something.
Yeah. And it's good. It's good so that then you are aware of, it's not like when it's no because I say so.
Yeah.
It didn't work in our house. It's always been because of such and such. There is a valid reason. So I had to do a lot of explanation during teenage years. But then it's always the case in every stage, that you always have to make sure that your children have done the right choice and they're independent enough to choose it on their own the right way.
It's funny that I did an interview about teenagers with a sort of a
I love that
coach.
one.
Yeah, it was really, really lovely.
Beautiful.
And his book is called Listen.
Yeah.
So it was all about just listen to what they've got to say, and somehow, you upon listening, it almost the way that sort of the conversation was going, that by you offering that space to be completely present with them, it gives them confidence in you. They want to come to you for a lot of things. And I just feel, I do remember whatever I was confused about, no matter how awkward it was, I would not really, I mean, at the time, again, we didn't have Google, we didn't have whatever. So, we would ask you, I would assume all the weird questions.
Yeah.
And I didn't
But it was
really
because she was
feel
always
shy.
chatting 24 hours.
Chatting. Yes, we did a lot
It was
of chatting.
it was never odd to ask for a question because no one ever stopped talking. We did, the three of us, I think, did not stop talking for the entire time that we shared a home.
Yeah. And it's very scientific. As you know, I'm a biochemist, and the whole family, my sister's a microbiologist, my brother's an engineer, your father, they're all scientific in a way that if there's any awkwardness, if you veer it towards science and things, it no longer becomes awkward. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
What would you say was the best part, aside from our graduations?
Yeah. The best part is when we get together and we have a lovely heart-to-heart chat or over a meal, and we connect.
Like nowadays.
Adult kids.
Adult kids are the best.
Okay, so that's the best age.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. What can I say? I see to have love in your life. You see, you have love of your parents, you have love of your husband, but there is no equal to that love that you have for your kids. There's no equal. Nobody can know that unless they have them. And that love just matures in a most wonderful way. And your children become your friends, as you are now. And I'm just so at awe when I look at you. Yeah, really. When I look at you and connect with you, that is the best part. And there is no equal. Yeah, no equal to that.
I feel like this episode, we're going to laugh, we're going to cry. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Are you guys super emotional or just me? You teach young women, and you have been for the past, 25 plus years.
Yes.
I feel like generally you have two girls. For the longest time, we had a female dog. I feel like the whole house just is female, sort of femme positive completely. And you're surrounded by them. I feel like
absolutely.
You've got Ayla and Haya, but you've got I kind of broke the cycle with the two boys. Yeah. What would you say after all these years? Your sort of top tip for women who are trying to balance career and family? I mean, you're still working. Yeah. Me and Layan are working, but we have families, and for our whole life, you've been working.
Yeah.
What would be just sort of your advice for women who are trying to do this balance, like family, job, career, husband, house, all that type of thing? What would be
for the ones who I teach? I always tell them to keep learning. And education is power. You have to go through life with a weapon in your arsenal. So never, ever stop learning, and do not have an education, because it will come handy whatever you decide to work, you decide to stay at home, whatever. This is a good thing to keep on the side. So now for the mothers who are busy like you are, again, going back to the stress you're in, it's just colossal. I can imagine, but you now, number one, you're perfectionists. All the mothers are perfectionists.
You say that, but I mean, I always think like we didn't have to leave and have to go through war.
But I think we did it different back then, though.
How so?
I don't know.
No,
I feel like we put this weird pressure on ourselves. Like,
you do.
I see her point.
Yeah. You have extra pressure. You have extra pressure of trying to juggle,
right? So even your work now is like very quick. It's all by emails. Your responses are really quick, and then you've got the kids at the same time.
Yeah.
But were you very in the emails back then?
No emails, but
it's like you finish work, you go home, you're done.
Yeah.
That's kid time now.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was a bit more
structured.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No, it is. It is true. But
it's true. If you don't reply to an email within like half an hour, they'll call you up and say, "Did you get my email?"
Yeah.
We never had that.
Yeah.
But we have our work and it's full, and we used to have faxes and telex and you know,
Written handwritten
written.
letters.
Yes.
That's what when I
Takes time
was
to correspond, you know?
No, when you have a pen pal.
yeah. But at least you had the ability to offload to someone, pick up a phone. When I was sent to the UK when I was 17, at the time in the 1970s, there's not a lot of women get sent alone
I love how you say
abroad.
sent. You went to university. You were
Yeah.
shipped off.
Yeah, because I had no say in the matter. You are gonna get a good education, and that's where you're gonna go.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I didn't complain at the
Yeah,
time. Of
yeah.
course,
Yeah.
I embraced it with open arms. But the thing is, at the time, I was only able to call once a week to my parents, and if I could, I'll go once a year.
Okay.
They will come once a year.
I'm
And that's
embarrassed
about
to
it.
say how many times I came home in the first year.
Or how many
God,
times you spoke on the phone, or
Yeah. So at least
Botum.
you had that way. You have a way to offload. You know, you're angry. You pick up the phone, talk to your sister, to your mother, to your husband, whatever, and you say, "Oh, I had such a horrible day." Well, I didn't have that. We had the phone, but
Yeah.
you know, long distance and all of that, we can't do. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about advice to us as this generation, whether mothers or fathers, parents trying to raise children? Now, looking back and have, even when you watch us, you know, when the kids come over here, do you ever want to critique anything? Like you think, oh, what are they doing? Like,
Yeah, honestly,
stop doing it this way.
too much anxiety.
Yeah, chill out. I know her advice is going to be chill out.
Is to take it easy, because honest to God, there is absolutely no, number one for me, with parents who are there, present, with all of their good intention. Your children are going to be fine.
Yeah.
There is no need to put that much effort into it.
Take it
You
down a
know?
notch.
Yeah, because you supervise every minute, which is fine. It's good, but you know, you don't have to put yourself into that. You know, you have to give yourself a little bit of a break, because too much emphasis, it's not good for you, and it's probably not good for the children. And we used to be able, you know, I remember when we were little, when the place was Iraq, Baghdad was lovely. I used to be on my bike alone, and my mother would say to me, "Go and get us, here's some money, go to the bakery, get us a loaf of bread."
How old were you?
I was about 7.
Oh my God, I would not do
You
that.
would, yes, you would. In a community, if there was a thingy, yeah,
At
you would.
7?
Yeah.
I mean, that's 5. I mean, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think that's so nice.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to take that on board and let them sort of,
Yeah.
especially Isla, she's older now, and she's by nature cautious, so I'm not really too concerned about her physical safety. And I try and get her to, exactly what you're saying, go ahead and do some stuff.
Yeah, because that way then, you know, you sort of give them that little bit of a freedom of they have to make their own choices, little choices that regards to their safety, so that they will learn to be safe. But for you now, every step you're worried about everything.
Because they're very young.
Yeah, they
Maybe.
are. They are.
Yeah.
That's
Getting there.
Yeah.
yeah.
And of course,
And not to worry about the future. That's the one thing.
live now.
Live now. The future, they're going to be fine. The future is going to be wonderful. And once you put that intention there, the universe will respond.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's all good, all
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
So I think you've heard some of the podcasts that I've done.
I love them. I hear them all the time. The minute you publish, the minute you publish them, I listen to them. And
That's why I brought you on here, to make me look so good. I feel so, like, you know, incredible now.
Oh,
So then you must know, when I always end the interview, I always ask whoever I'm interviewing
yes.
to share a quote.
Okay.
Do you have one?
Yes, I do.
Layan, would you also like to share one?
No, I'd love to hear hers though.
Okay.
So mine is, his life doesn't come with a manual, it comes with a mother.
Oh,
And that is, you know, you mothers are the guidebook to the life of your kids. And I'm sure you are. And what's your quote?
You got one? I'm sure you do.
No, I didn't. Mine was something about, you don't realize your strength until you become a mother. And then it took a dark turn somewhere. It said you can deal with anything. And I was like, that's a bit much. But yeah.
Yes.
You don't know your strength. You really don't.
You really don't. Yeah.
It's true.
And just your strength is huge.
Yeah.
And just being a mother only scratches the surface. There's so much strength in any females and all the women.
Yeah.
They have a huge amount of strength in
Absolutely.
there. So
Absolutely. We run the world, as Beyonce would say it, right?
I love Beyonce.
Amazing. Who doesn't?
Yeah. The best.
To everyone who's listening and watching, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Wishing you guys hugs and kisses and sloppy kisses and wonderful moments with your children, and God bless you all. Thank you for listening to They Say It Takes a Village. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to bringing you another one next week. Don't forget, please subscribe, rate, and review so I can reach and help even more parents. And if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover, please head over to my Instagram page, ittakesavillage.me, and drop me a line.